In this video, I want to talk about the impact of the girl boss on the UK economy. Now, it's a very similar thing that happens in other countries too, and we're going to talk about them here. Here, someone's got a tweet. It talks about the downfall of the UK in one picture, and it's got 5 of the top women who are leading the country alongside Keir Starmer, and you can see it has 5.4 million views, right? And it's from an account that isn't relatively big. We've got different characters here, Angela Rayner. Don't recognize some of these names, but we're going to go through some other points here. But the whole point is, you might think, okay, it's a career channel. Why am I talking about senior management roles at the government, right? In the cabinet? Because you see similar things in the UK, in the US too. You know, even on the right wing, MTG, all these type of characters, if you're aware of them. And the benefit it comes here is when a lot of us can't use examples from the corporate world because we don't know about it until there's scandals or until people like me are giving you open and honest stories about working at Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or other major investment banks. And then even then, I'm not referring what stories coming from which company. And then, you know, people have experiences, they're not going to say it publicly because they're still in the industry and they're going to be shifting from one job to another. So they're not going to talk about the experience of working with some of these girl bosses, right? But using politics as a case study, where obviously women are working in government roles and in some cases, you know, roles that impact everyone's tax, impacts the economy. There's a reoccurring theme of incompetence, of a lack of accountability. But if you're dealing with a lot of that in the workplace, I have career coaching to help you with that. And part of my career coaching videos, as part of my coaching program, it does cover working with girl bosses, right? Dealing with these type of toxic co-workers or managers. Now, I spent over 10 years at Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, HSBC and investment banking. I know how it works when it comes to promotions, hiring, salary negotiations, when it comes to even dealing with these difficult personalities that could be roadblocks to that, right? So these are all the type of things that are very important to do and take steps to do now in 2025. Before 2026, when the economy is going to get worse, these useless politicians are just going to make it even more difficult for you. And my coaching price is also going to increase next year. So if you're interested in coaching, looking for real solutions, link in description to speak with me directly. Now, let's get back to this. First, we're going to look at this brief clip of this politician who's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is the most senior economic position within the UK government, within the whole of the UK essentially, right? And here she is crying after a very difficult discussion around government budgets. And this is the ridiculousness you have to deal with in this society.
47%. And may I take this opportunity to thank our outstanding British Transport Police for everything that they do to support staff and passengers.
Now, when your entire economy and your financial outcome, your quality of life is in the hands of what is a socialist government, right? And that's what you have. To be honest, in many countries in the West, even though you hear the term capitalist used all the time, you're paying such high taxes, 40% or more tax rate. And these type of people are essentially, you know, country into the ground through, you know, using your tax for conflicts overseas that you don't even necessarily support. And this is the type of reality that you've got to deal with, this completely collapsing society, right? If you're a man and you tell the truth, you work hard, you really struggle to succeed, right? Just because you're being honest, like I'm being honest. The reason why I can be honest and you can't is because you're kind of in a way you've got to be playing along with this charade and pretend it's legit in your corporate environment. I've seen women use tears, fake tears. I don't really trust them, right? There's a famous quote by Jesse Lee Peterson, who's a black conservative in America. He said, if she's crying, she's lying. He actually made a t-shirt as part of his merch line, is if she's crying, she's lying, which means sometimes women do use tears as manipulation to get sympathy, to get what they want. I remember one instance on a trading floor of a major American investment bank where a woman had made a mistake, which is kind of and she just started crying about it because she knew it could impact her career. She'd probably get like a disciplinary, she won't get fired, but it'd probably be on her career record that, you know, she one more time after that, she'd probably get fired. And she started crying about it. And I see women try to use tears and get sympathy anytime something goes wrong. And as a man, you can't really use that leverage. And then you've got loads of simps in the workplace who are like the guy in the friend zone, the beta orbiters, and then a woman, you know, plays of emotional manipulation and they easily fall to her whims or her little technique. Well, for me, it's kind of obvious what game she's playing. And the thing is, a lot of the corporate environment is full of weak, you know, liberal type of men who will fall for this, right? Like the leader of the country right now, Keir Starmer, or these kind of self-empowered girl boss types. Sometimes they don't have the knowledge and skills to level up. And this woman who's leading the UK's economy right now She pretended, and we're going to go through her background, she pretended she was an economist at a major bank when actually no. All she did, she managed the customer complaints department. She went from managing a small customer complaints department of a shit third class UK bank, not like a major investment bank. She went from that to leading the UK economy, right? And you got to think about what set of circumstances leads to that. Firstly, she's parroting all the right liberal feminist agenda. She's parroting the woke agenda. She's playing the fake professional character. She's welcoming those social circles, middle-aged white woman, AWFL, affluent white female liberal. Now, I went to London School of Economics. I know tons of other people who are highly skilled in economics who'd be a better fit for this role. I'm using this not to talk about politics, but to talk about the power structure that you're living under as a man, but more important, a power structure, the girl boss archetype you have to deal with at work, who's been so artificially propped up, who you're having a conversation with at work, and she's 5 levels above you, and she's maybe, than you, and she's had a fast track route to senior management, and you're like, how does this happen? How does she not know basic things? Every company I've worked at, without naming them, or let's just say most companies I've worked at, so I don't end up in legal issues, there've always been this accelerated career path for this demographic, right? A woman who will start 2 major companies I'm not going to name. You'll have a white woman who'd start as an intern, and she'll incredibly fast go up to vice president, go up to managing director roles. Should be like 5 to 15 years younger than people at her level, because this company has set a certain agenda to put women in senior management roles. So there've been many scandals that come up with regards to the leader of the UK economy, right? On what's her on her CV, what's going on with the expenses when she was working those jobs at different banks, and also, how she lied about her roles at those particular banks. And it's covered on the BBC News, so official news stories, this national Scottish newspaper, and it's also on her Wikipedia. So I'm going to summarize it all for you, right? So she lied on her resume and her LinkedIn profile. She said she worked at the Bank of England as an economist for 10 years, but it's actually 6 years. She worked at Bank of Scotland, which is like a third-class trash UK, that's a retail bank. It's no big deal. It's not a Goldman's. It's not a Morgan Stanley. It's not even a third tier HSBC Barclays. It's like a small little retail bank. She said she worked there as an economist at this bank, but what she actually did was managing the customer relations department, right? Managing a small team there to managing the most powerful position in the UK economy, right? These are the type of people I often had to work with or work for, and I'd always wonder, like, how does someone like this end up in a position above me? Now, if I can outsmart you, if I could be able to out-earn you, you've got a culture that is artificially propping you up. And now I want you to remember this, because this is so important for your career. If you can outsmart someone, if you can outwork them, you should be out-earning them. And if you're not out-earning them, it's because there's a flaw in the way the system works. And typically that's office politics. If it's not some gender equality BS, which is gender bias against men, often it's just office politics. So if you are smarter than your co-workers, if you can work harder than your co-workers, you need to figure out what is the answer for you to out-earn them, right? Don't end up a chump. Don't end up one of the guys that are probably working on her team, earning a fraction of her salary, doing all the technical analysis so she can earn a higher salary. She can benefit from the money and the social status. Doing what I tell you to find personal solutions, right? If you are smarter than your co-workers, if you can outsmart your co-workers and you can outwork your co-workers, you should think maybe you should become a consultant. Maybe you should become a freelancer. Maybe you work for 2 or 3 top companies and then you go and become a contract worker. And the whole point I'm making there is, don't let this system undersell you and give you a low salary so you can prop these type of people up. Also, what you have on her Wikipedia, right? Not only was she managing a small team, not only did she lie about her expertise in economics, also what she did is, there's lots of scandals, is that she was reported in some kind of whistleblower report when she was working at the bank. She was going to a lot of dinners and events, taxis, gifts, and they were misusing the company funds just to have fun, right? Now, she wrote this book which talks about women who made modern economics, which again is this kind of feminist rewriting of history. And what's funny is the reviews this was getting from Financial Times and things like that, and mainly more reputable sites. They were saying that her book is fake. Her book is essentially just copying, pasting stuff from Wikipedia, right? And there's 20 examples of plagiarism in the book, entire paragraphs and things like that, right? And BBC News saying, oh, it wasn't even properly referenced. We've got here, it's covered here, right? People are saying it's lifted content from Wikipedia. Financial Times are critical of the book, saying it's a lot of plagiarism. That's the funny thing about the book, right? And this is, again, she's gone criticized again. And the book is basically a fake of expertise that she's showing. So the expertise lied about her experience at the Bank of England, working there for 6 years, not 10 years. Lied about her economist job at Bank of Scotland when she was just a small customer sales department. Got in trouble there for misusing the expenses of the bank and going out, you know, spending the company money, going out with the other co-workers and maybe clients, allegedly, of course. This is the type of typical BS, the DEI hire, the type of woman that will be put in a position of power. This image here. Sad, crying womanocracy, right? What is this saying, right? All decision-making authority is invested in sad, crying woman. Government legitimacy in this current system derives from women crying and looking really sad whenever they are challenged in terms of their right to govern. This is what happened with Rachel Reeves. Like I say, she couldn't handle the pressure when dealing with a difficult government spending bill and making some government cuts. So let's continue here.
To deal with the problem, and that means never crying in public. This was just an unacceptable thing to see. This was a person who had, frankly, lost control of themselves. And as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the first female Chancellor of the Exchequer, I might add, not appropriate. Right, not appropriate. It's your job. You can't just break down and have a little cry in the middle of the House of Commons. That is not acceptable. There is a reason that people are voting against this den mother politics. You can't just have a little cry. People are relying upon you. You can't say, well, you know, there's plenty of people to spread the blood. No, you're responsible and you're crying in the Houses of Parliament. It's not on.
100th Monkey says, I love spending an entire generation figuring out things that humanity realized thousands of years ago, right? There's certain realities of men being in positions of power or women and what the outcome would be, which we can right now in this crumbling civilization. We've basically wasted our generation and many people's ability to reproduce and buy houses and have kids on the basis of, oh no, we need to put more women in the workplace rather than having kids, and we need to make it more difficult to have healthy families. Here it says here from Ryan, the long march through the institutions wasn't just communist, it was feminist as well. And this is very true, right? People like to talk about communists or woke taking over the workplace or the corporate environment or the government, but it's also feminism too, right? And that really has had, you can see the impact it's having now. I mean, how are you meant to feel as a citizen when you're struggling with, you know, high cost of living and the person in the economy is crying because you can't handle the pressure of managing the economy? I mean, I don't know what else to say. Says, I suppose this is also the reason I hate modern corporate culture. It's all about extraction and escaping accountability with a comfortable payout. And this is really it. This is really how the call about escaping accountability and extraction, right? And this is what I try to tell you. This video actually is about politics, right? The video I'm reacting to. But this is the key lesson, right? If you're in the corporate world now, because of the liberal feminist ideology, the general corporate slimy, greasy culture, it's essentially about extraction and escaping accountability. It has nothing really to do with, you know, people working and taking accountability. And it reminds me of, you know, how some people read those self-motivation books, improvement books. You might be familiar with Jocko Willink. And he talks about extreme ownership. If you want to be a good leader, you have to take accountability. Yeah, you can apply that to your personal life. You can apply that to maybe group projects you do with friends and things like that. But applying that in the corporate world is just dumb. This is another phrase, the term shit test or S-word test, as I'll refer to it now. Almost a decade ago, Stefan Molyneux, if you're familiar with the guy, used to be big on YouTube and then he got kicked off and I think he's back now. It's just a test. And what that means is sometimes women act in these ways to test how men will react. And this is what it's become. This type of childish behavior has become so normalized in the workplace, in government, they used to put up with it. And this testing how men react, right? If we're going to dominate and lead women, to put it nicely. And the thing is, that's just not going to happen with all this political correctness. I've said this for years. Middle management in the corporate world is a fantastic example. There are departments that were invented solely for the employment of women. These departments do nothing. They arrange meetings, they do workplace trainings, and are just gossip sessions. But they also work exceptionally well at reducing the operational efficiency and effectiveness by blocking inter-department communications. Someone responded and says, I worked for a video games company that had many focus groups that didn't even contribute to the game. Carson, who responded, says there's lots of fake jobs that women are working that benefit from these companies, and they're not doing a lot of work essentially, and they're getting paid quite a lot of money. This is what I'm trying to say, right? The whole point here, it's not about politics, right? I don't care about politics. I keep telling you politics is a losing proposition. The point is that you're going to have to deal with this type of personality type, right? You're going to have to deal with this pointless girl boss in middle management, right? You're going to have to deal with them holding competent men down, and that's going to harm your career, right? It's going to harm your income growth. It's not just, oh, it's going to be a bit of corporate time wasting. It's really harming your income growth potential. And when I work with my clients, it's about how to navigate around these girl bosses, how to structure your career where you're less dependent on the approval and validation for these people. Of course, you get caught up in a situation where there is a responsibility for you to work with them and deal with that type of dynamic. But over time, you want to have more and more power over your career and less dependence on these people, right? You want to ensure that these women are not acting as they often do, these girl boss types in middle management, as a filter, where they filter out all the men who are strong and competent, who could be a challenge to them in their career, and they always promote and give more attention and fast track the career of the more effeminate, weak men that they can push over, that they can control, like the pushover boyfriend. That's what they do when they're in the workplace, when they're thinking about which men is going to get preferential treatment, because the corporate workplace has now become some kind of high school drama. It's become who the women find popular rather than who the competent guy is, right? Because you might have a competent guy who might not have the most politically correct views. He's not going to be the domesticated, weak, liberal type of man, right? And this can impact you, right? This can be the reason why men are not succeeding in their careers, right? It's not just because they're incompetent or they have a loneliness epidemic or whatever. It's because there is a genuine bias where women do control a lot of the social dynamics at work. And to show you how completely and utterly incompetent these people are, let me know what you think about this clip in the comments.
Show that the economy beat expectations in the second quarter of this year. We are the fastest growing economy in the G7 for the first half of this year, with a GDP growth of 0.3% this quarter, and that's after GDP growth of 0.7% the quarter before that.
Fred, outside of the UK, and actually for some people in the UK, you try not to keep track of these type of people, but as people outside of the UK, this is comedy. I repeat, not comedy. It is not satire. Now, I have to double and triple check quite often that something is not comedy and satire, that it is in fact real, and this is one of those things. And if you're outside of the UK, this is a lady called Rachel Reeves, and she is in fact in charge of the money. Yeah, charge of the purse, the kashish, this charge of it all.
I recognise there's still more to do to make sure that people in all parts of the country benefit from that growth. But since the general election, when I became Chancellor, the economy has grown by 1.2%, and GDP per capita, so for every person in the country, GDP per capita is up by 0.7%. So encouraging numbers today, but of course we need to build on that to make sure people in all parts of the country are better off.
I've been keeping up with this guy's channel a bit every now and again. It's called Carl Vernon, has 70,000 subscribers, and his channel's grown quite a bit. He's actually an author. I don't think he typically gets into politics. He just talks about some social dynamics. But I find it interesting that, you know, covering this more and more often, because many people are realizing they're ruled over by complete idiots, right? You just listen to that, and I being ruled over by this person. This person's telling me they know more about economics than me. This person is telling you they should rule over you. They should tell you what to believe. And this is what I keep going back to, the whole concept. You have a lot of castrated, censored men, and you lot of other demographics who are ruling over you. You have the weak, liberal, simp men, you have the entitled, empowered woman, and you have the baby boomers, the brainwashed kids who are kind of, they're right and you're wrong. Wrong with you, you're a misogynist, you're not modern enough, you have to embrace, tradition, you have to believe what you're told, trust the statistics, trust the experts, and these experts are more often than not wrong, because if you just use your basic instincts, you can tell how much BS they're telling you, right? Like you can see in this example here. You can just listen to the way they communicate. I don't care what the statistics say. People know the UK economy is getting worse. You can't pretend, oh, we've got GDP growth of 0.3%. I mean, I don't believe that. Everyone knows what the reality is, right? And that's what I mean by being ruled over by idiots. The fastest growing economy, she's talking all this nonsense, 0.3 to 0.7% economy growth. No one's really believing that, right? And these types of people, they tend to name and shame you. They tend to say that you're the problem. Well, often they are the real problem demographic. If we want to talk about problem demographics, it's the liberals and the feminists that are ruling over people, right? And they destroyed the West. And lots of things are second order effects of that. People want to talk about mass migration to the West, censorship. This is a second order effect of putting these people in positions of power. For not just now, I'm not talking about the recent government, I'm talking for decades. For decades. Had this ideology. Don't talk about gender pronouns in your school now, or, you know, the boss at work now, if you can't really see this has been an ongoing problem. It didn't just all of a sudden the red pill came out of nowhere. It's really an ongoing problem that has been there for a long time. A college economics student can do better than her. When I was at college studying economics, I could do better than her. Most of you who may have studied, maybe done an economics course, even online, free courses you can do online on Coursera or whatever, you could do a better job than her. And I think there's not a key difference here, not just her inability to understand what she's talking about, because she's come from managing a small complaints department at a third tier trash UK bank to leading the economy. She's doesn't have another key quality, which is honor, integrity, right, mastery of the skills, of the technical knowledge. But there's a certain level of honor, virtue, honesty that I would bring to the table, or someone else would bring to the table, even though I don't want to get involved in politics, and I'm sure you don't. You have to deal with them when you're at work, right? You have to deal with someone like this who's going to be making 5 times your salary, telling you what to do and blaming you if something goes wrong when they don't even know what they're talking about. And the real question is, and that's the question we all kind of can't speak about, is who is propping up these people? Who's fasting tracking these people to rule over you? Who's creating a dynamic where the weak and the dumb are ruling over the smart and the strong? Now, just to show you how much is impacting people, and this type of control and coercive control and lies and hypocrisy is impacting you, it doesn't just impact the government, doesn't just impact the economy, impacts you at work. Like I've said, all these archetypes of personalities that you can see here, you have to deal with at work, but you also have to deal with the workplace culture and the social culture being impacted by this type of demographic. Here we can see an article, right, which is about how ridiculous it is, by the way, right? The country's falling apart. Your workplace is probably highly dysfunctional because of this demographic too. This is a case where the police officers decided it was a good use of your hard-working money, your hard-earned taxpayer money, for 2 police officers to dress up and go for jogging trips and then catch men who are catcalling them, right? Who are shouting out to them to get their attention, to flirt with them, right? How is this a good use of money?
Police are hot on the case of the real hardcore criminals, men who catcall female joggers.
These women aren't friends out for a run. They're actually undercover police officers taking to the streets in Surrey as part of a new operation trying to stop people catcalling and harassing female runners.
We get honked at, the staring, the hanging out of the window just to look at us, and it just...
Police teams are ready to intervene the moment the officers are beeped at, followed or shouted at, pulling people over.
Have you got a licence to be honking that horn?
Those kind of behaviours may not be criminal offences in themselves, but they still need to be addressed.
Wait, what?
Those kind of behaviours may not be criminal offences in themselves.
Fabulous use of police resources to go out on the hunt for people who aren't committing crimes.
It just shows you like that occurs when you have this type of misaligned focus, right? When you're focusing on the wrong type of situations. It's the same kind of dysfunction you have in the workplace. It's playing out in society, it's playing out in the government, in the economy, in your workplace, when everything becomes about anything apart from the work, anything about productivity. And the thing is, when you pursue productivity, when you pursue focusing on excellence, efficiency, things like that, everything else tends to take care of itself. But if everything's about equality, egalitarians, emotions over, over facts and things like that, you end up having this type of ridiculous society where it becomes all about political correctness rather than productivity. This is what I actually focus on, right? Because the point is, yes, this is the career channel and I talk about finances and the economy, but you're really dealing with a lot of social dysfunction that is directly linked to the economic and career challenges you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with weak leadership, they're destroying the economy. You might be for a layoff before one of these useless girl boss types, right? And if you're fed up with that instability and you want to build more stability into your life, more power, pay, freedom, I leverage all my experience for over 10 years dealing with these type of people. at Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, HSBC, other companies too, right? Not directly at those companies, of course, because they were excellent places to work at. I know what it's like to deal with these type of people and how to navigate around them. It's all included within my coaching program. Link in description if you want to speak with me directly and really push your career forward. Let me know in the comments how you feel about some of the stories I covered, and I'll see you in the next video.